We need to get a picture of everyone afterwards too. Yeah, big group picture.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight. It's so wonderful to see so many people gathered here today as we celebrate the Winnipeg launch of Not Safe for Work by Nisha J. Tuli. Apologies in advance to anybody who has the sun in their eyes. Rest assured, it'll slowly pass over and torment everybody here equally. So you're all nicely set. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that we are, of course, gathered here in Treaty 1 territory. That's the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Ninawac, Anishinaabe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. In addition, McNally Robinson Booksellers itself rests on the land once occupied by the Métis community of Roostertown. I am keenly aware I am the least interesting person on stage at the moment, so I will not take up too much of your time. I just have a few quick procedural notes, and then I'll introduce all of our panelists this evening. First of all, I wanted to extend our most sincere gratitude to Forever Publishing and Hachette Books Canada for publishing this book in the first place and for making this evening a possibility. And we're so very grateful to all of you for coming out and joining us either in person or online. To give you an idea of how the evening will go, there'll be a conversation that'll take place to my left. Following that, there'll be an opportunity for you gathered here to ask questions. So please do let those percolate over the course of the evening. When it comes time for questions, I will approach you in a non-threatening way with this microphone, and then feel free to ask whatever happens to be on your mind at that point. At the close of the event, I will go over signing procedure, but the only thing I'll put in your minds right now is we'll ask you all to remain in your seats for 1 second, just because we need to safely transport Nisha to the signing table, which is right beside our cash desk. And I'll have more details for you at the end. But now we can talk a little bit more about Nisha's USA Today best-selling book, Not Safe for Work. So to my left is our host for the evening, Kaila Anttila. She's a Winnipeg-based content creator passionate about sharing her views and recommendations on romance and fantasy books. With a growing community on Instagram and TikTok, she connects with thousands of readers who are as obsessed as she is with all things bookish. And you can follow her at kaila.books, Kaila, if you have your phones out and ready to go. Our special guest this evening, right at the end, is of course Briar Boleyn, the fantasy romance pen name of USA Today best-selling author Fenna Edgewood. Briar once wrote scholarly papers on Dumbledore, Dragon Age, and King Arthur before finally realizing she could create her own worlds where all three might coexist, with significantly more kissing. After wandering through English literature departments at 4 universities across Canada, she took a detour to teach in the Arctic, where her students would sometimes run out of class to chase polar bears. Briar crafts stories from the prairie province of Manitoba, where she lives with her dark fae husband and their 2 demon-angel hybrid children. When not raising fictional dragons from the dead, Briar enjoys reading all types of sci-fi and fantasy, cultivating an unhealthy Disney World obsession, and playing RPG video games. Of course, our guest of honor, Nisha J. Tuli, is an Amazon Top 50 and international best-selling author whose books feature kick-ass heroines, swoony love interests, and slow burns with plenty of heat. When she's not writing or reading, Nisha can be found enjoying travel, food, and camping with her partner, 2 kids, and their fluffy Samoyed. Please give a raucously inappropriate level of applause for tonight's panel.
Is this on? Oh, there we go. That's quick.
We're live.
First of all, 2 Winnipeg-based authors in Winnipeg. I think that deserves maybe an extra round of applause. It feels quite rare that happens. But John did wonderful introductions, but maybe you could both tell us a little bit more about how you got into the writing process or became writers.
I go first? Okay. How did I get into writing? I started writing, well, I always worked in like marketing and stuff like that for a number of years. I worked for Chow Magazine, I worked for the Free Press for a short while, which were interesting. But then I was working for Travel Manitoba when the pandemic hit, managing their marketing team. And it was that summer of 2020, and I was just like, my kids were home, my husband wasn't traveling, I suddenly like had time I hadn't had in years, and I was like, you are not getting any younger. And I always wanted to write a book, and so I sat down and I wrote Hard Night and Fire, which was the first book I ever wrote, which at that time I thought was going to be a YA fantasy. And the fire just like lit under my butt at that moment. Like I just like became determined to make this happen, and I started researching a bit more on how to publish a book. Like I had no idea how you do that. Like it seemed impossible, but slowly, I tried to go trad first, actually. I tried to query an agent, and I eventually signed with one, and then the book went on submission, but it was like sitting for like a year and a half, and I was sick and tired of waiting for that. And then I discovered indie books, and I was like, oh, this is like a whole other world. And romantasy was starting to like really pick up on the indie side, and I thought I could do that while I'm waiting. So I ended up publishing a couple little things, and then in 2022, I published Trial of the Sun Queen, and it was doing all right. And then I ended up selling like Hard Night and Fire and Not Safe for Work, both within like a month of each other. Like when it rains, it pours. And in publishing, like when stuff's not moving, the advice you always get is like, write another book, write another book. So I did, I kept writing another book, like waiting for something to happen. And then everything happened at once. And then early 2023, Trial of the Sun Queen just blew up and suddenly found its audience. And then I had publishers coming to me, which was a very nice feeling. And I ditched the agent I had at the time because she was not very good at her job. And so she knew, she was very nice, but she knew she wasn't very good at her job. We had a mutual understanding that it was time for me to move on. So I signed with my now current agent, and we took the trial on sub, and it went to auction, and like the rest, as they say, is history, which brings me to you lovely people here today.
It was 1991. But yeah, I feel like I always wanted to be a writer or a ballerina. But then I went in a different direction for a long time. And then I started writing, but it was in historical romance, not fantasy romance. Thank you. Oh, that's okay. Better when you're tall. Yeah, and then my friend was about to start writing fantasy romance. I'd already written about 15 books in historical romance because I was into Bridgerton. And then I wrote Queen of Roses, and it started taking off, and now Bloodwing Academy. And I learned Nisha was from Winnipeg and started attacking her on Discord. And that's how I'm here.
I was very excited when I found you. Sometimes I feel like
yeah, it was
island
great for
here.
Yeah.
Not a lot of romantic authors. Are there any other ones?
I don't know, but we're gonna get some to live here, so it'll be bigger.
I love
working
that.
on it.
Different-
I'm
very
working on
different
American
career journey.
authors.
Inspiring. So Nisha, obviously we're here to talk about the congratulations on the release of your new book, Not Safe for Work. For anyone who maybe hasn't read it yet, maybe you could give us a quick overview on what the book is about.
So it is a rivals to lovers office romance, and I say rivals, not enemies, because in contemporary, I don't really think they're enemies. The guy in the cubicle next to you is not really your enemy.
Holding a knife to your
head. You know, like
We have other problems
versus
on
like
our
my
hands.
romantic series where it's like his dad killed her whole family. Like, yeah, that's your enemy. Yeah. So rivals to lovers office romance. The main character Triss has been in her job. She feels like she's flailing, hasn't really been getting anywhere because, you know, white male privilege is prevalent everywhere, and she gets a surprise invite to this leadership retreat in Hawaii, but her co-attendee is the hot but annoying son of the boss, her rival, a guy she can't stand. And then when they get there, there's only one room and only one bed, and we all know how that
Because of the
goes.
villain of the story,
Yeah,
Belinda.
because of Belinda's incompetence.
So still a few of those romantasy tropes.
Yes.
Yes.
So you are known for your romantasy books, or at least I know I love your romantasy series. What inspired you to get into contemporary romance?
Well, I feel like it was my other love, and when that first like YA fantasy was on sub and not selling, I started writing something totally different because you can like sub to different editors and publishers. So again, like the advice of like when something's not happening, write another book. So I thought I had just read The Hating Game and I was obsessed with it. And it was like the book that made me want to write a rom-com because it just like, oh, the tension and Sobird was so good in it. And I always wanted to write a book about like my engineering days. Like that's what I did for university. That was like the first 4 or 5 years of my career, and like the crazy stuff that would happen with like being a woman and a woman of color in a male dominated environment. Like some of my female coworkers were like, we have to write a book about this one day. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna finally write that book. And so some of the things that happen in Not Safe for Work are definitely inspired by incidents that happened in those days, some of them funnier than others.
What was it like to write about something so personal?
I mean, it was easy in a way because I felt like I knew the material so well that like I didn't have to do a ton of research or anything. Like it was very much inside of me, and it was cathartic. Like, I mean, I got out of it because I knew it was never my passion, and like we were many years of retrospect and just right, like I didn't really hurt anymore. So it was like more fun than anything to sort of dig up, especially some of the more like humorous things that happened where you're just like, I cannot believe that he said that, and now it's funny. Like for the people who have read it, like the very opening where he asked him on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate me? Like that was an actual conversation I had with the guy. And so like,
so it's very personal.
Yeah, so like we would joke when we wrote the book, we would call it Conversations with a 7. Because he rates himself a 7. Anyways, yeah.
That's funny. So how long did it take you from to the whole writing process for you, from initial draft until it was finished?
That's a good question. I mean, it's hard to say how long it takes to write a book. Like I draft pretty quickly, like within 1 to 2 months, depending on the length of the book, but I draft them really messy. So like for me, the process is like 90% editing. And I mean, I actually wrote this book quite a few years ago. So like and then I didn't finish edits until last year because a bunch of other stuff came in between. So like some book, just because like you see the order books come out doesn't necessarily mean when they were written or when they were dealt with, because Forever actually had acquired these before they acquired Artifacts. And because all of that happened, they like kind of pushed these aside because they wanted to get those ones out quicker to like maintain the momentum of them. But yeah, I don't know. I draft fast. You draft fast? Faster, yeah.
But I have to like percolate for a few months and procrastinate, and then when I feel really stressed out, I write the book.
I mean, the actual writing is my least favorite part. I love the editing. Like I'm so happy when I get to edit.
That's a rare thing. Most authors say the opposite.
Yeah, I don't know. I love the editing.
Did you find, is the process different for you with this compared to, or how does it differ with the Romantasy series where you have like a multi-book series? Different? It's
pretty different because I'm a pantser. Does everyone know the difference between a pantser and a plotter? Like basically a pantser is writing by the seat of their pants. You don't really plan anything out ahead of time, versus people who plot the entire thing, and like lots of people fall sort of in between those two. But I am a pure pantser where I just sit down. I usually have a like sense of who the FMC is and who the MMC is, and like when they kiss. And when they do other things. But my in-laws are in the audience, so.
So are you drawn more than to the romantic elements of the book when you're writing?
I think so. Like I think a lot of the same things that people liked about my Romantasy, you still find in this book, just in a different context. Like the slow burn and the like the tension and all that. Like you can put that into any setting. And I think like the contemporary is easier when you're talking about like language, like it's easier for similes and metaphors and stuff like that, but like it's harder because you can't like throw a demon in there and make a plot, right? Versus it has to have like some basis in, just Belinda. Yeah, metaphor and demons. You really don't like her. I have to tell you a story about Belinda later.
She's on the ex-girlfriend side.
Probably, yeah. So, and then just the length, like this book is like 80-something thousand words versus Tale of the Heart Queen, which is the last book of my series, was 165. Wow. So basically it was 2 books compared to this. So like the length is just so different too. And having it all tie up in one book definitely is a lot simpler. Like finishing. So
did you prefer that then? Doing the standalone?
Not necessarily. No, I wouldn't say I prefer it. It's just a totally different, like writing the 4th book in both of my series was really, like the last book is so hard. Like, you have to tie it all together, and you can't. A lot of pressure to make sure, because like.
And you have to remember your own lore, character names.
You have to remember everything.
I'm constantly control F-ing.
I I sit down and I listen to the audiobooks at 3x speed,
Oh.
and I take notes each time that I go there. Because to remind myself of things, but yes, that part.
So you forget, as you're
Yeah,
writing, you
you're
forget things
like-
from your.
Yeah.
You didn't hear that from me.
No, I remember
We
every
have perfect
word.
memories.
So romance novels, and I find like specifically in the romantic fantasy space, they've obviously become hugely popular, and sometimes they're labeled as smut. Do you have any thoughts or commentary on that or a response
Very
to that?
convenient. No, they're propping up the entire publishing industry.
Yeah.
I'll let Nisha answer this.
I mean, I think there's like always a stigma around romance because it's primarily a genre written by and enjoyed by women. So, and things that we like are not important, right? Like men can get dressed up in their stupid sports jerseys and paint their faces and like somehow that's serious. But because
No, it was supposed to be
well, but
serious.
it's like
We're not a sports
it's a
family.
legitimate, it's like a legitimate thing versus like romance is just fluff and sort of, yeah, not worthy. And like also when a man writes romance, suddenly it's literary fiction and it's, you know, like it's just so very obvious in how things get dealt with. But I mean, like anyone, all of you guys are obviously romance fans, like you know that romance deals with so many like important things. Growth, personal growth, and all kinds of trauma, and like examines friendships and life and everything that comes through it. And I think it's BS to sort of say, and yeah, romance basically props up the entire publishing industry. Like, it's like 80% of the money that's made in publishing, especially indie to trad publishing books right these days. But so it's silly to dismiss it as not important. You should add some, you need to add a thought.
I'm proud to write smut. I don't know, I've taken lots of classes on this, and I once took one at the UW on pop fiction. And we learned about pulp fiction, like actual pulp, like how people would mass produce like sci-fi and detective, like, what are they called again? It starts with like pop boilers, I think. There's nothing wrong with that, we need that, right? It's like, I feel like romance is what lets us read heavier subjects when it comes to romantasy, because we know it's gonna have a happier ending. We can add in a lot of darker themes that I don't know if I'd wanna read without knowing that there was at least gonna be some good
Without a
in
happily
it.
ever
Yeah.
after. Yeah, there's enough going on in the world
Yes,
without the
yeah, and we don't have
happily
trigger
ever
warnings
after.
on all the newspaper articles.
So yeah, with the rise of romantasy too, we've seen, you know, a change in how books are marketed, perhaps in social media. Have you seen a change in, I guess you've kind of been on the precipice of that, starting your writing journey in 2020. Have you seen social media change the way that you market or you marketed your books?
I mean, social media has been a big part of the success that I've had, like TikTok and Book Talk have been very integral, and not necessarily me, but more importantly, other people posting about books, because I can tell you it's great till I'm blue in the face, but obviously I'm gonna say that. Well, maybe not, but I am gonna say that, but it's way more powerful when someone else says that. And I do think there's also like, I mean, it gives me the opportunity to talk to readers, which I really like, engaging with people. I think as we keep going, I think is some like negativity that's starting to occur where people are getting a little bit too comfortable with imposing their wishes and demands and asking you strange questions and like and getting angry when you have to move a release date and stuff like that. So like while it's been mostly positive for me, there's definitely sometimes the negative that comes with it too.
I think it's interesting because it's shifting power to readers to tell us what books they like the best and away from publishers, right? That's why our books both got popular, mine more recently. And yeah, I don't know, I don't know what it was like before Book Talk, before Bookstagram. That's been my whole world.
Yeah.
I think we're just really lucky that romantasy, Bookstagram, Book Talk are so fun and nice.
I think Book Talk made reading cool again.
Yeah.
Like I think it
That's how I
definitely,
discovered
like,
both
yeah,
of you, was
like,
through
yeah.
through social media.
And it heavily favors romance, so I think in that case that worked out nicely for us.
And you touched on criticism, specifically on social media, but I guess generally, how do you handle negative criticism?
why would, as I was saying, the more books I publish, the more of a delicate baby flower I become. Like when I first published, I'm like, I'm gonna read all of my reviews and I can take it. I can take the feedback. No, I cannot. Yeah, I mean, at this point, like, criticism comes from my editor, it comes from my beta read. Like, I have people whose opinions I trust, who are my critique team, and that's who I accept criticism from, and they like know how to give it to me in a way that I can handle it. And like my editor is hilarious because every time she'll be like, okay, so he's hot, but why does she love him? I need more. I'm like, what more reason do we need? Like, but
And you wouldn't smile at her for months.
So yeah, but like I don't read reviews anymore. I mean, sometimes you are forced to see critique because someone will tag you in a negative review or say something to you or whatever. Like I was at an event last year and someone literally like said to my face like, oh, I hope this gets better or something. And I was like, okay then. Yeah, I was like, and my friend that was with me, she's like, did you just say that to your face? And I was like, yeah, anyways, walk on. So I mean, it happens. I think it's just like part of putting yourself out there. Can be really scary, but like, I mean, again, for the most part, people are nice. And obviously, not everyone's gonna love your books, right? Like, it's just, it's art. Like, some people are gonna hate it and some people are gonna love it.
I used to be a really harsh reviewer, so I just think about that, like, reading is so subjective, it doesn't matter if some people don't like it, right? Because as long as you have lots of people who do, then.
Yeah.
So I do, like, I look at some reviews, but I don't look at the 1 stars, I look at the 3 stars, because everyone I talk to says the 3 stars kind of tell you more about what you can fix, so sometimes I'll look at those and then I'll get ideas for the next.
That's interesting.
Do you ever go and read like the 1 stars of your favorite books? Sometimes
Yes.
that makes it feel better when you
Totally.
realize
Yeah, if I'm
he's
like
like
imposter
super popular,
syndrome,
yeah, and you're like, okay, someone hated
Jane
this all the
Austen,
time.
Pride and Prejudice, all the 1 stars.
So when you think about people who are new to becoming authors, do you have any advice for them? Or new to writing?
Finish the book. There's no point giving advice, I feel like, unless the person can kind of like stick with finishing a whole book first. I think lots of people want to write, but you have to make yourself get to the end. I definitely almost quit through the first book multiple times.
Yeah, button shares definitely. I would say make friends, because I would be lost without my writer friends, because there's just a lot of bullshit that happens in this industry, and like you need someone to complain to about, someone to compare notes with, because like sometimes you don't know if something is normal or crazy. You just like need to ask people. And the other thing is to think about your goals. Do you want to just like write a book and put it up on Amazon and then you're just happy with that? Or do you want to like have a career? Do you want to see your books in stores across the world? Like both of those differences, like it will inform every choice you make along the way, whether you want to go into your trad or yeah, think about your goal and like what you want. Like when I first started, like, yes, I didn't really know what I was doing, but I did have a vague idea that I did want to be published, that I did want to like make money from writing books, even if I didn't really know what that meant yet.
Makes sense. So when you finish a book, do you usually have an idea of what you're going to be doing next? Do you take a break between projects, or is it like, I already know what I'm going to, I know you've mentioned you have a couple things on the go. How does that work?
Nisha should go first.
I've never had a break. I don't know what that is. No, I do. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I could live 1,000 years and not write every idea that I have, but so ideas are never the issue.
You're one of those authors who can write multiple books at the same time, right?
Yeah,
and
I like
I'm the
it.
opposite. I can only write one at a time.
Yeah, I like, my brain does better with switching between projects. I need a break from.
So with all these ideas you have, is there a genre, maybe subgenre of book you haven't dabbled in that you'd like to? Maybe cowboy romance?
I don't know, I like a cowboy romance. Well, I really want to write dystopian, which I am doing currently. I have a YA dystomance. Are we calling it that yet?
Let's make that a new
I
word.
know, I keep saying it, and some people get really mad about it, and some people are like, yes, let's call it dystomance. So that book will be coming out next year, which I'm excited about. I feel like dystopian is about to have a moment as it surrounds us, and it's going to be part memoir, I think, at some point, but don't you think, as the
Please
world?
don't say that. But possibly.
Possibly. What about you?
Like what genre would I have?
Yeah, maybe that you haven't
I'd
dabbled in
probably
yet.
hop to fantasy with like a romance subplot, because I feel like I'm actually, I don't know. But let's see. I'm more of a fantasy sci-fi reader in real life.
That's what I was gonna ask, what genres
Yeah.
do you like, anything you like to read in real life?
In real life,
yeah.
The romances I read were all old-fashioned ones, so it's kind of funny.
Oh, really? Yeah, I mean, I mostly read fantasy romance. I also really like some dark romance. I would like to do some dark romance at some point too.
So you mentioned you're thinking about dystopian. Can you let us know what maybe you have in the works for your next projects?
Yeah, so what I have lots actually. I actually just got all my dates for the next 4 years today, so I have my whole spreadsheet ready to go. Okay, so I have a YA dystopian romance coming out next year that is, I'm comping to Gossip Girl meets Divergent.
I'm gonna need to hear more.
Which I'm very excited about. It's like Manhattan, like 23,500, like way beyond our world, everything, the last bastion of civilization, and some stuff happens, you know, but as it does. I'll have 2 more rom-coms coming as well. The next one will actually be set in Churchill in Manitoba, which I'm so excited about. It's going to be at a polar bear lodge with the grumpy lodge owner and the travel photographer who comes and she needs to get a shot because she needs one for this like magazine cover and he doesn't want her there and she doesn't know why, but you know, we'll find out why.
Love that. Back to the dystopian romance. What made you decide to, I knew you were about this. What made you decide YA versus most of your books have now been adults, new adults?
Mostly because my contract with Forever precludes me from writing adult for anyone else right now. So, and I've always wanted to do YA also. So it kind of slots in nicely because I also just accepted an offer for my next romantasy trilogy with Forever with the same publisher, the first book will come out in 2027. And that one is like a second chance, enemies to lovers, he betrayed her, they're fated mates, but they've been apart and it's killing them and they have to get back together. And I'm so excited because those opening pages are the best thing I've ever written. Like, I'm just like so excited to write the rest of this book.
We have to wait 2 years.
I know, it seems like a long time, but it's gonna be here before we know it.
Okay.
I know.
What about you, Briar?
Back to the polar bear romance.
Back to the Churchill book.
That's gonna be the new thing after cowboy romance.
Maybe.
Polar bear.
I feel like
Arctic romance.
I feel like
I
Canada
Arctic
is
romance.
and I feel like
Romance
Canada's
between
like
polar
hot
bears.
right now. I feel like Canada's hot right now. Cause you know, we've been like threatened to take over and like Carly Fortune has kind of made Canada hot too. So originally I've written it like as sort of like a nondescript northern place. I'm like, why am I doing this? Like we are gonna set this in
Make
Churchill.
Manitoba famous.
Yeah, we're gonna make Manitoba. And I'm pretty positive no one has written a romance. in
It'll be like
Churchill.
Outlander. People will be taking tours to Churchill
Yeah, I'm
instead of
gonna
Scotland.
single-handedly, I'm gonna do my job better than I ever did when I worked for Travel Manitoba.
What books do you have on the go, Briar?
Just Bloodwing Academy.
Bloodwing
Just
Academy, okay.
vampires.
Just,
vampires.
that's where the mind is right now.
You have 2 more left, right?
At least.
At least you haven't decided.
I was excited because you'll see. Book 3 is complicated.
I know, Briar, you have mainly been independently published and you have done both independent publishing, traditional publishing. Are there advantages to both or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, when I switched from indie to trad, it's like it suddenly goes from you to like a whole bunch of people and suddenly other people are making decisions for you and you're like, oh my God, but also it's kind of nice because you don't have to make every decision for yourself. I don't know, I always wanted to go trad, like that was always kind of a goal for me. It's just, there's lots more opportunities you get with trad, like just invites to events and like being in bookstores and getting on the bestseller list. Like there's just like lots more you can get from being traditionally published, but you are also giving up like some parts of your control but I have to say like my team is great. Like, don't make me do anything I don't want to do, and everything is collaborative, and so far I haven't had to make a decision I didn't like.
I'm just at the start of that journey, so I
Yeah.
don't know so far. I love being indie, and I am a control freak, I think, and a hermit, so we'll see how it goes, but yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that when it comes to the actual creative control, like how much control do you have over when it comes to things like your book cover, your blurbs, the actual creative process, like deadlines?
I've had pretty, like, basically when we were just doing this cover, they were like, do you have some artists in mind? And I sent a few, and the creative director was like, oh, I've been wanting to work with her. I'm like, okay, great. And then I suggested the scene and the clothes, and the artist came up with the pose, which I love, with him carrying her shoes. And then they sent it to me, and then I was like, I don't like this font. And so I went on Canva and I was like, what do you think of this? And they were like, sure. So I feel like it was very much in control there. So.
Yes. I know for both of you, I've listened to both of your audiobooks, and I'm a huge audiobook listener. I don't know if anyone loves audiobooks in the audience. Yeah. How does that process work?
It's pretty hands-off, actually.
Yeah.
Like, you get, I asked for a narrator in one case, like for artifacts. I wanted Corbin King because I had seen him on TikTok and I thought he would be perfect for Nadir. Then they sent me a few options for lore, which is Sunil and Ankani, who's amazing. She just sounded perfect for it. And then when Not Safe for Work, I was like, could we just get Sunila again? Because she was so good with the other one. And then they asked for pronunciations, which when you're a fantasy author is the worst, because you come up with all these like weird names and then they're like, how do you pronounce them? I'm like, I don't know.
I was gonna say, do you have the pronunciations thought through in your head?
Sometimes I really don't.
They look good written
Yeah,
down.
it's aesthetically pleasing, but how it's pronounced, I don't freaking know.
That's really funny.
It's the worst. And then you have to like say, they want you to like record it. You're supposed to like read the whole list and you're just like, I don't know how to say this.
That's funny. What about for you, Briar?
Same thing.
Same thing? Yeah.
I think it would, yeah, and I survey my street team on what narrators they want, because they all listen to more audiobooks than me, so I just take their list.
Do you guys yourself ever listen to audiobooks?
I'm not really an audiobook listener.
Are you Kindle or?
I would if I had time, but I have 2 small kids and write books.
Okay.
But I
What
would love
about-
to listen to my own audiobooks. I will only listen to clips.
For everyone here, are you a physical book reader? Show of hands, yeah? Any Kindle users? Yes, okay. And then just a handful of audiobooks, I think, okay? What about romantasy? Are any of you romantasy readers? Okay. Contemporary romance. Okay, so a little bit split, or both, I guess I should say. Okay, that's right. And when it comes to spice, are we more slow burn? Are we not gonna tell?
They can't all be closed door readers or they would not be here.
Yeah, are you all closed door readers?
We're about to read some of these scenes aloud.
Oh, we actually have a little bit of time here, it looks like. It's only 7:34. I'm kidding. We actually zoomed through a lot of these questions. I don't know if we want to break it into some questions from the audience. Yeah. Anyone has questions?
Oh, hey, it's coming in a non-threatening way. Who has a non-threatening question to ask?
I'm just curious how you decided to pick your name. Like, one of you has a pen name, one of you think uses your real name.
Yeah, this is my real name. I needed my haters to know when I made it.
Lots of authors say that.
Yeah.
Are they here?
Any plants in the audience?
Do I remember it? Also, like, I wasn't like, what would I have picked, like a white name? Would I pick another brown one? Like, it seemed too complicated to me. Like, I felt like I needed to.
A good name too.
Yeah, I just felt like it was the right name to pick, and yeah.
Your own name.
My own name.
Mine is less pronounceable, so I would not have picked it. I just went with short. And there's reasons I use a pen name, so yeah.
Yours is very like fantasy romancy, yeah.
Although lots of people don't get the Anne Boleyn reference. Just
Fools.
I assumed an animal reference.
ask, what are some of your like favorite romance authors of all time and favorite books of all time? Like, what are some of the ones that you would recommend to people?
For romantasy, my favorite right now is The Hurricane Wars, which I am obsessed with. The minute I read that, I was like, I'm gonna make Theo my friend. So I like slid into her DMs and she's stuck with me now, whether she likes it or not. I'm actually gonna meet her next week at Imaginarium in DC, which I'm excited about. And I was like, I'm gonna fangirl, I'm sorry right now. And other ones I've read recently, Our Vicious Oaths by Nia Davenport is coming out in a couple months, and it is a standalone fantasy romance, like true enemies to lovers. It was amazing. And Danica Nava wrote Love is a War Song, which is one of my favorite. That's a cowboy romance. If you want a cowboy romance, this is the cowboy romance to add to your TBR. It's so good. It comes out in July. One of the nice things about being an author is you get to read all these books ahead of time.
Trial of the Sun Queen.
Trial of the Sun Queen on except that is all I read.
But Phantasma was really good too, and Nocta Katie. How do you
Oh,
say
yeah,
that?
Nocta Katie was
Yeah,
really good.
Caleb will know, good, yeah. John has a good narrator voice, don't you think? Next time he talks, everyone listen to that voice.
Are you eyeing us for your next book?
Yes, possibly.
I thought so. Is there a piece of work, like both of you, that of yours that you're like the most proud of? I know it's an amazing accomplishment, like to publish all of your books, but is there one specific book that you're like, yeah, that was my most proud kind of book?
Anytime readers message and say, I'm a puddle on the floor, or I threw my Kindle, or I'm screaming, or why did you do this to me? Or my favorite is, I'm gonna send you my therapy bill.
Yeah,
Then I'm like, I need to write more twists.
Add
Yeah.
it to the stack.
So my book 2.
Book 2
Yeah,
is your
my
favorite?
book 2 of my Bloodwing series is my favorite right now. But my last book is usually the one I like the best.
Okay, I'm not just saying this because it's the most recent one, but I actually think Not Safe for Work is my best book that I've written. I don't know, I just feel like every time I would read it, I'd be like, yeah, this is exactly what I wanted it to be.
It has a lot of beautiful writing.
So Not Safe for Work is set in Chicago, for people who haven't read it, right? So did you feel pressure to put it in an American city rather than a Canadian city?
I mean, it's mostly not set in Chicago.
But like,
It's mostly set in Hawaii. Yeah, I mean, I kind of just picked a random American city that they would be from that I have actually been to, so I had
I was gonna
like,
say, do you need to do
yeah,
research in it
yeah,
to make
I
sure
mean, I
it's
didn't-
geographically accurate?
because there's really not much city there, and even like in Hawaii, like I've made it a nondescript hotel. Like I, went on TripAdvisor and looked at some pretty hotels and was like, I'm gonna pick this room and this pool and this, like, just to build my dream hotel in my head, which is what, like, when writing contemporary, like, kind of stresses me out because you do have to be more accurate, whereas like fantasy, you just make it up and like, it's my world, it's my rules. But and also actually then writing the Manitoba one was nice because I'm like, well, I know all of this, like that was easy. So I don't know what I'm gonna do for the next one. I've run out of ideas for myself.
It's funny you say that about writing contemporary because you have to keep it accurate. But what about with fantasy, making sure you're not using the contemporary slang or words? Is that difficult too?
I mean, I don't know. I tend to include contemporary. Like, to me, it is translated from the language of whatever that world is. Like, I'm not trying to write an old English, like,
Yeah.
I'm not basing this on any time that is familiar to us, even if it feels like a world that you think you know. Like, so I do tend to use, to a point, modern vernacular in my books. And I think that's kind of the
It's more
trend.
fun too.
Yeah.
Right now, I threw some in for.
Yeah, if you think of like Avatar and Fourth Wing, like they all do that. Like I feel like that's the trend in romance.
There's porcelain
right?
toilets.
Like, yeah, and I was like, if I can have dragons and magic, we can have plumbing and
Yeah.
flushing toilets and showers. Like I'm not,
I do not want to read about that.
Yeah.
And they shower in between
Yeah.
pages.
yeah, exactly. I want hot running water,
Yeah.
like if you can suspend disbelief for a dragon, you can for a shower.
They've got water. It makes for better scenes
Yeah.
later when they're walking through the forest for a few weeks and
Right.
then at least take a shower.
Right, and there's no deodorant in this world, yeah.
we are a little bit of Churchill experts. Have you been to Churchill?
Yeah, I have. I've
Do you
been
have family?
No, it's just when I worked for Travel Manitoba, I got to go up a number of times, and I'm not really like a wildlife travel person, but it was definitely like one of the most magical things I've ever been able to do, like, yeah, so it's
Do you
just.
need any?
No.
Our
Like,
uncle owns the hotel, and like my
Which one?
auntie owns built the Lorries, Stingwalls.
Oh,
Sounds like Nisha's going on a trip to Churchill.
I know, I wanna take my family, I've never taken my kids, and one day I would like to.
Publisher should pay for it for
If I can swing that.
We'll see you at the signing
We'll
table.
go. These are my two coworkers in Toronto, Manitoba, and one day we were gonna take a trip to Churchill. They were there with me the whole way of this journey to the book, so.
I would like to know, what was your inspiration for writing Trial of the Sun Queen? And what was your inspiration for writing your Blood Academy books, right? Because Book Talk has dubbed them, you know, like Hunger Games meets, what was another one? Hunger Games meets
The Bachelor.
The Bachelor, yeah, and then the other
Guilty.
one is Fourth Wing meets Vampires. So are those quite along the lines of what your
I
inspirations
have only
were?
read the first Fourth Wing book, but yes. But yeah, that was one of my inspirations for sure. Like, and I was watching True Blood, and I was like, we need more vampires. Also, why is everyone so against blonde men? I don't understand, because if you watch True Blood, Eric, anyway.
Yeah, I guess so, like, I wanted something that was easy to pitch in a line, and yeah, the Hunger Games meets The Bachelor was a nice, like, everyone you know exactly what you're getting when you hear that line. I don't know, again, because I don't really plot books, I just like sat down and started writing. I kind of had a vague notion of what I wanted, and I knew I wanted a contest, and I knew I wanted it to be like a contest for like the Hand of the King, and it just came out of there, yeah.
It's almost like the challenge or the Survivor. meets
Yeah,
Bachelor, isn't it?
Survivor, yeah. I really wanted the like, I don't know if this is a spoiler, but the like double love interest, like who's the love, and I love that trope, so I really wanted to have
The
that.
bait and switch.
Yeah.
I'll never get sick of trials. People
Yeah,
are like,
no,
oh,
yeah, trials are always fun.
But really, we're never gonna get sick.
Trial of the Sun
I
Queen
wanna
is
see
some of
people
the
almost
most,
die.
like, something I hear from a lot of readers is Trial of the Sun Queen is some of the most exciting trials that
Thank
are,
you.
yeah, very,
So someone's been like, you should be a game maker.
yeah.
Okay, if this doesn't work out, I guess. When the real Hunger Games starts.
Hi, when you're writing your characters, do you have their faces in your mind before you do it, or does it come up as you're writing? Like, or do you have a celebrity like, ooh, he's very attractive, or she's, like, how do you decide what your characters are gonna look like?
I do not have celebrities. I don't know who anybody is, personally. I have like a vague notion of what they look like. I will go on Pinterest and I will like find some clothes that I think they would wear and some images that represent them. But like, for me, I have a very like loose notion of who they are, and then as I'm writing, that's when I discover them and I hear them talk, when I make them do stuff, like, that's when I really learn who they are.
Yeah, no celebrity inspiration for
I
mine.
hate when people.
But I
like,
can
"Who's your
see them in my
celebrity?"
mind, yeah, I can see their faces, I know what they look like, but I'm never gonna actually be able to tell, like when you try to get art commissioned and you're trying to describe your characters, it's impossible and they're all gonna turn out differently,
Yeah.
but that's fine.
It must be interesting too then when you see people do fan art for your books online and just the difference, right?
Yeah.
And the way people interpret
Yeah.
the
I mean,
difference.
that's the neat thing about books, is you can kind of imagine them. What do you want to imagine?
So I actually just finished Trial of the Sun Queen, and before this, I had been kind of feeling a little worn out by romantasy and fae, and so I actually really enjoyed this, and that brought back some joy to that genre for me. And part of it is you didn't actually focus necessarily too much on, I'd say, the romance in this book. And I wonder if you received any criticism for that, because sometimes when you get a romantasy book and there actually isn't a lot, people get kind of like, they get like snippety about it, for lack of a better term. But I thought it was like, this is a 4-book series. This is good that we haven't rushed too far into this. And also, credit for pitching it as the Hunger Games X. Because usually when people do that, I don't think they're as willing to kill characters. It's usually a little soft. This was like, oh, people are dying.
Kill some people.
Yeah.
I can't say that I directly got much complaint about that. I'm sure someone was complaining about it somewhere, but yeah, I mean, it was a series. I think like with the mid-year chapters, you kind of know something is coming. If you've read Romantasy, you are aware that that's probably going to lead somewhere. I don't know. It's just, yeah. And I think like over 4 books, you don't want it to happen too fast because then I think it kind of can get tedious and boring. Like we needed the relationship to have enough tensions to carry over an entire series. So.
That said, do you guys have thoughts on the difference between fantasy with romance, romantasy, romantic fantasy, and just
It's just
interesting
romantasy.
I
It's
do.
just
Yeah.
romantasy. Just call it or fantasy or romance. Right?
My opinion is there's no such thing as romantic fantasy. Like it's either fantasy or it's romantic. It's fantasy with a bit of romance. Like every genre has some romance.
Yeah.
Like it can have romance in it. I don't know. Or it's romantasy. Like I don't. That's my hot take.
It seems like everything's kind of
I know.
put
I-
into the same
but
bucket, right?
To me,
Romance and
romantasy
fantasy.
is like almost 50-50, right? Like
Yeah.
the fantasy plot and the romance plot are pretty
neck and neck.
equal-ish, yeah, and you can't have one with, to me, you cannot have one without the other. They are integral, both integral to the story. You couldn't, if you took the romance out, there wouldn't be a story anymore and vice versa.
I agree with Nisha.
If that's allowed. I have
No,
two questions.
no.
Threatening question.
No, I'm so curious for this pantser thing. It just sounds like really chaotic in my head. It sounds stressful. But I'm curious if that also means that you write chronologically or if you pantser random parts of your stories, and how much it changes in editing.
I do write chronologically. It does sound chaotic, but especially when you're writing a big long series, like I live in fear of writing myself into a corner. But I guess like I have some sense of where we're going. However, when I wrote Artifacts, I thought it was going to end differently, the whole series. There's a thing that happens in the second book that actually ends up changed the whole ending. And it was just like a throwaway line that I never intended to make anything.
No, I need to know what it is.
If someone wants to ask me later in line, you can ask me, but yeah, so like it was actually kind of fun because I think it ended up making the ending way better. Like I knew I didn't want to end with a war. I did not want to write a war like that was, and I don't really like reading wars. But it ended up, I think, making the end, and yeah, it was just this sort of like throwaway line, so it was kind of fun. I mean, I had the luxury of writing ahead a book so that I could like make sure anything, any like Easter eggs or something were in the previous ones, and I did throw a few things in just in case. But I think that just comes from practice, from reading a lot, from writing a lot, like you just sort of start getting a feel for where the story's gonna go. Yeah, it is chaotic, absolutely, but I keep a lot of things in my head, and like I don't really keep a Bible or like a series Bible or anything like that. I just keep a lot of stuff in my head.
Can you elaborate? It was pantser is what it's
Yeah,
called. Can you
pantser.
elaborate on what that is for people who might not know?
See, well, Stephen King was the one who coined it was like writing by the seat of your pants, where you don't have like an outline, basically.
I have friends who do not write in chronological order.
I know that blows my mind.
It's
I couldn't do
horrifying.
that. Yeah, I couldn't. I know lots of people who do that actually. I was with Kimberly Lemming in Minneapolis and she said she writes out of order, and I was like, I don't know, that wouldn't work for me.
Did you say you don't like reading about wars?
Yeah.
And you're reading your new favorite series is the Hurricane Wars?
But it's not about a big battle. It's about the war and like it's not a
That's
like,
on my TBR. I
I
haven't.
guess
read
just
it.
like big battles. I didn't want to write a big battle.
Fair. Didn't need to put you on the spot.
She's calling me out. Read it, it's so good.
Hi, so this is kind of picking off about that plotter versus pantser thing. Because I know I'm an indie author, and I also listen to a lot of different podcasts and stuff like that with a lot of various different writers, plotters, pantsers, all that kind of stuff. How do you approach writing a synopsis for something that you're then pitching to your team? That's so difficult.
it is.
You can bullshit your way through
Yeah.
that.
As I just like sold this romantic trilogy, and basically I had to write a synopsis for the 3 books and then like a few chapters, and yeah, that almost killed me. But I mean, they know that's not it could change. Like they just want to see that you have some like sense of what you want to write. But yeah, it's very difficult is the answer. What else?
Answered the questions.
We answered the
Just harass Nisha about being a pantser more.
Okay.
I know we also want
There's
to.
one more back there.
You talk about loving the editorial part of the process. Why is that?
Because I love taking like the messy draft and like making every sentence beautiful and like finding the right word for everything and just like and adding layers and like the different sort of like details that go through it. And like to me, like every book feels like absolute garbage for a little while, and then there's like around the 3rd edit where I'm like, oh my god, it's a book finally, right? Like, and it's like a miracle that it happens every single time. And yeah, I like the details and like just making every line beautiful, and to me that's the fun part.
What was the difference in the editing process now being traditionally published?
It almost killed me. No, like with when Forever picked up Artifacts, they really wanted those last 2 books fast, and they did not give me very much time. Like they really put me through the ringer there.
I was gonna think it would be the opposite, that you
No,
have like a whole
no.
bunch of rounds of editing.
Now I will. So
Yeah.
like the contract I just signed, I have like a whole year to write it, and I'm like, I don't even know what I'm gonna do with myself. Start a pen name, that's what I'm gonna do.
I wasn't gonna make the joke.
She probably is. She's prolific enough, fast enough.
I wish.
You're ready to write a dystopian novel. If we have time before, is anyone gonna ask any more questions? Love to get a group photo of everyone.
Yeah, let's do that.
I thought that would be fun if everyone's agreeable. Yeah.
While we're doing it.
Your phone, it's my phone. I feel like people are already taking photos. Is everyone good with that if we take that?
I was gonna say, yeah, they were saying I think everyone else hears.
All right.
Can I get one of you standing with in front of everyone? If that makes sense, and I'm gonna go like this. Ready, set, oh my gosh, you do have to zoom out, hold on. Go up on the chair.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's great.
Yep, we're good.
Thank you all so very much for all of your questions. Thank you to our wonderful panel as well for pulling together an excellent discussion. We will now be moving along to the signing portion of the evening. So as mentioned at the beginning, if we could just humbly request that you stay in your seats for just one moment, we will transport Nisha to the signing table, and then I'll let you know when you can all wander over and get a book signed. Please note that you don't have to pay for the book before you get it signed. There's no worries there, but we do ask that you please pay for the book before you physically read this book. Just to let you all know as well, I'll be walking down the line with Post-it notes to write your name on the page. Not that we don't trust you to spell your name, but just so you can spend more time chatting than spelling when you get to the table. So please give a very warm round of applause to all of you.